Hello and good morning. This is Kelsey from Kelsey Reads Things at Anna Porter Public Library in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And today, on this Tuesday, rainy morning, I am excited to finally be discussing Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. This is a young adult fantasy series, and I highly recommend it for fans of Mulan, independent ladies, people who disguise themselves as the opposite sex to be accepted, and for those who are very interested in design, specifically with clothing. Before I discuss the plot of this book, I do want my viewers to be aware that there are some triggers that you may want to be aware of before you pick up this book. Some triggers include losing siblings as well as a parent. Just so you're aware, I just like to let my audience know, again, before you decide to pick up a book that I review. Okay, time to discuss the plot. This story opens with Maya. Maya is a very skilled, very talented seamstress who has inherited the gifts of her father, and thanks to her, she is pretty much keeping the family alive and afloat. Unfortunately, her mother passed away as she was a child, and she grew up with her three brothers. I believe their names were Finlay, Sendo, and Kenton. Please forgive me if that is not the correct pronunciation of their names. And they refer to their father as Baba. And the setting of this book, I believe, is Eastern Asian culture. I'm not exactly specifically sure. I want to say it's based off just Eastern Asian culture. And if I learn more about it, then I'll be sure to discuss that with you when I discuss the sequel, which is Unravel the Dawn. No, Unravel the Dusk, excuse me. So Maya is helping keep her family afloat by being pretty much the main seamstress after, unfortunately, a few events occur. Poor Baba is just not the same man that he was. He's not in a great mental shape, and he unfortunately starts drinking and not taking care of himself, and that leaves poor Maya, the youngest sibling, to end up taking care of the entire family. Two of the brothers also end up going to war, a war that is taking place between the emperor of the area as well as the Shanshan, and I believe the Shanshan is supposed to be like the military or something, so to speak, like the head of the military. They've been bumping heads, and because of that, the two older brothers have gone to war, and now it's just Maya, Keaton, and her father. A few things occur, the war comes to an end, and now for peace, the Shanshan is marrying off his daughter to the emperor as a sign of peace, and they are about to have a competition to find the newest tailor for the upcoming princess. I think I forgot to mention that the youngest brother also eventually goes to war, and he returns with a very damaged leg, or both damaged legs. I think it was just one really damaged, unusable leg, and he, of course, is down in the dumps. So the emperor is trying to locate a new tailor, and he goes to Maya's home, and actually, or he doesn't, he sends a messenger, and they are actually on search for Baba, who is known as one of the greatest tailors in their town, in their area, in their country, and of course, Baba is not in any shape to do this. So what does Maya do? She disguises herself as her youngest brother, pretends to have his ailment and not be able to use her leg, and literally becomes him in order to enter into the competition, taking her father's place. And she does this because there's no place for a woman in basically any kind of career path in this world. It's very old school, very generally something you can find in fantasy, and so Maya has to compete against all of these other tailors and also hide her identity. So Maya becomes entangled with 12 other, I believe it's 12 other tailors that she has to compete against, and chaos definitely ensues. She runs into all kinds of challenges and eventually learns a little bit about magic. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because otherwise it will be giving a lot away, and I'm trying to make my book review videos just a little more vague. I think that adds just a little bit of mystery and fun to these book reviews. Maya ends up having to take risks she never thought she could, and it doesn't really help that the Emperor's enchanter, a man that he uses to wield magic, seems to have taken a liking to her. And that's the general premise and plot of Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Okay, so all that being said, I will say that this book is definitely a fantasy book. There is magic in it. It takes a little while to get to it, but it's also a fantasy romance. And I'm not going to say really any more about that because, again, it's just this book was such a fun ride and it has a lot of twists and turns, and I would like my viewers to experience that as well. Personally, I really enjoyed the premise of this book. I enjoyed the setting. I enjoyed the culture that I was introduced to. I even liked a majority of the characters. At times, I thought Maya was a bit, what's the word I'm looking for, harsh or distrustful, but considering everything that she was going through and everything that she was put against in this book, it's not exactly hard to understand why. The element of magic, as well as just the story, was fairly unique. I mean, I've definitely read stories about characters who are having to compete for a certain position, especially in terms of being a seamstress or a tailor. I've read another book similar to that, but this one really took that and kind of went within a different direction with it. And because of that, I again think that it was just a unique story. And I think the author did a really great job. In fact, I think this was one of her first books that she's published. I know that she's also worked with the company that's recreating Disney movies into books with different authors. I believe they subcontract out authors to write this, and she did write the Mulan one, which is Reflection. And in case you're curious, we do have the majority of these at the library, and they are referred to as a twisted tale. So it's basically just taking Disney movies and recreating them to be books with, again, a twist to them. And the only reason I bring this one up is because, again, if you're a fan of Mulan, she is very talented at writing that kind of character and that sort of story. Both women who disguise themselves as men. So I not only enjoyed the story, I also really liked the writing style. At times it was a bit choppy, just a little bit like transitioning from one occurrence to the next, but for the most part it flowed fairly well, and the dialogue between characters was certainly the highlight of the book, especially the witty and fun kind of bantering dialogue between Maya and between the enchanter Eden. And again, the enchanter is pretty much employed slash in service to the emperor. I also thought the characters, the ones that were most present, were fairly dynamic. Even, for instance, Lady Sarnea, something of that nature. She was obviously who Maya was making these dresses for, against these 13 other people, and her character was extremely dynamic. There were certainly times I did not like her at all. There were times that made me rethink her character. So again, I thought that the author did a really good job of creating dynamic characters, people that had a lot of layers to them, and I look forward to getting to know some of the secondary characters a little bit more in the sequel. Again, the magic system in this fantasy series was really unique, and I really enjoyed it because it was something a little bit different than what I've been reading this whole year. So again, creativity is always appreciated in really good books. There were times that the plot, in my opinion, was just a little bit kind of all over the place because there are three parts to this book. There's the competition, another part, and another part, of which I'm not going to say anything about because otherwise I'd be giving away major spoilers, but just be aware that this is a kind of a long, drawn-out plot, but again, it's not a super long book. It was a little less than 400 pages, so that's just something to be aware of, that it does have a bit of a twisting plot. I personally liked Maya. I thought that she had a very level head. There were times when she made decisions that just kind of frustrated me because they didn't really make sense to me, but at the same time, what would a book be if it didn't have a little bit of flaws in their characters, because otherwise they would just be boring and unentertaining. I will say Maya's resilience was probably one of my favorite aspects of her character. She was just not willing to give up anytime soon, and she was known for losing like days of sleep just to complete the items that she was making for these competitions, as well as items that she made later. And I was happy when she finally accepted herself for who she was, and I can't really, again, say a whole lot about that, but she does kind of question her destiny a few times, and when she finally accepts it, I think it's very rewarding to the readers as well as to the character. All that being said, I did enjoy Spin the Dawn. I think it was a great introduction to this series that Elizabeth Lim has created for us. I enjoyed the characters, the plot, the setting. I enjoyed the culture, as well as just the magic system that was entailed. And because of all that, but because I just had a few gripes about the way it was written, I gave this very interesting fantasy novel 4 stars. Thank you for viewing today. I decided to do my book review today because this Friday I am taking some time off away from work, and Thursday I have other endeavors that I need to see about, and of course Wednesday I am going to be full with work. My schedule, I should say, is going to be full. So that's why I decided to do my book review video with you today. I hope you've enjoyed. Please feel free to always reach out to me and ask questions. Maybe give me book suggestions in the future. I always look forward to hearing from you. Next week, I look forward to discussing either The X Talk, and that is by Rachel Lynn Solomon, or How to Be Ace, a graphic novel depicting one girl's experience as she was growing up as asexual. Thanks again so much for stopping by and viewing with me today. I look forward to discussing more books with you in the future, and I hope you have a terrific Tuesday. Thanks again.